by itself, cloud technology, big data technology, telecommunications technology, all of those matured along their own line, and then they began to converge, and all of a sudden, I'm now able to automate using incredibly sophisticated tools and change the nature of the workplace, of the work going on in the workplace. And we'll come back to workplace and workspace in a minute, because the same disruption, the same source of disruptions and convergence is radically reshaping and putting a wedge between. Well, it used to be, Irene, I'm going to take a step back. It used to be that workplace and workspace were one thing, right? Everybody got up, took a shower, got a car, got a bus, got a bicycle, and went to work. And there was your workplace and your workspace. And that pretty much defined the environment in which work occurred. Well, starting about 25 years ago, 25 to 40 years ago, those two things began to get peeled apart. And as I mentioned, when cell phones occurred, when they arrived on the scene, and you got to think that's over 30 years ago, dramatic disruption to the notion of workplace and workspace. All of a sudden, you can talk to me anywhere I am. Oh, now my workplace and my workspace are starting to get divided. Now I've got handheld devices. Now I've got free conference calling, free video calling. I've got the ubiquity of handheld devices with high quality cameras and microphones in them. And I have a telecommunications that's 4G, LTE, and 5G capable of supporting massive amounts of data flowing in two directions, which make it capable of supporting this kind of work that we're doing right here and now. So the things happening to the workplace and the workspace, we have this piece of automation coming in, which is massively disruptive. And then we have this notion of the separation of workplace and workspace. So we have new work to be done. And it now doesn't matter where I do it. And I have access to incredibly sophisticated AI capabilities that can be integrated in my automation, which is now available in the cloud, right? Even the automation platforms are now available in the cloud. So you use a browser to configure the automation. You don't even, you're not like you don't install a piece of software. You just log into a web address.
I use the browser to record this very talk right now. This is fascinating new capabilities that we discover, new tools popping up here and there with virtual events, with all the communications that's readily available in HD. We're talking now.
Right.
Imagine that, HD recording in the comfort of our own home. Please get going. We started with processes, but we quickly got to 5.0. Right? What would it mean, this next level of automation?
And that's what I'm trying to make is that this convergence, when different technologies are all racing ahead on their own timeline and they bump into one another, that's when real disruption occurs. And that's what we're seeing right now. Now, not unlike almost every technology that man has ever developed, there are a bunch of unintended consequences which people aren't thinking about. We'll talk a little bit about this today, but I'm going to tell you that corporate culture is in a life-threatening crisis. And we'll talk more about how all of this throws corporate culture into the ditch, but it certainly can and will. And I was on a panel. Gosh, it had to be 2-3 months ago now, and the question was asked. I know we're all trying to survive through this COVID thing and all the changes that have been wrought to business, and what's going to be the next thing that threatens the corporate world. And to a person, everybody agreed with my description of why culture is going to be the next crisis. Something that we don't pay that much attention to, and because it just occurs naturally, right? But remember, when the workplace and the workspace are together, then all of the people that are involved in that workplace and workspace get to observe one another. They get to provide feedback to one another. In a lot of cases, that feedback is nonverbal. It's a look across the table that says, "Don't say that." It's a kick under the table that says, "No, you can't possibly do that." It's it's the leader or leadership explaining company decisions. It's about leadership describing how the values of the organization drive the behavior of the organization. But that loop is broken, Irene. Right now, and let's just use some simple math here. We'll say that your intended and unintended turnover in your company is about 15%. Depending on what your industry is, it's probably somewhere between 11 and 19. So that says that in 3 years, half of your employees will be new, right? Just simple math. Mm-hmm. So that means that half of your employee base may never have met a coworker in person, may never have been to an office, and will have missed out on years of observational data that they would gather by virtue of being in this workspace. And if you look at the course of 8 hours or 10 hours or however long you're working, the number of opportunities that occur during that time period, all of which are supportive of values and culture, maybe 0.3% of them will occur. And that's only if people are really intentional. I was actually, a clip was shown of a leader in a conference call illustrating this very fact. And, there were 10 or 11 people on the video conference, and they had to get to an important decision. And so the leader took the time out to ask the group, what do you think that our value of innovation how should it impact our decision in this case? How should our value of transparency, or whatever the values were that he was espousing, what impact do they have on this conversation and the work that we're about to do and the decision we're about to make? And he got the group into a conversation about values and how they influence behavior. And that was an example of a very enlightened leader taking the time out to try to build a little bit of culture. Mm-hmm. Because if I go 5 years out, we might have as much as 70% of a business that has never been enculturated. They've never been a part of this workplace, unified place where culture is built. And I think it's only going to get more dramatic.